everyone, and a very warm welcome to this videocast. Beyond books and blogs, inspiring CX stories brought to you by Epic Consulting. I'm Ghulam Hasnain Ali, the host for this show and founder at Epic. And in this series, we want to bring to you the stories and experiences of customer centricity passionados who've used customer journey maps and similar alignment diagrams such as service blueprints and experience maps to help their organizations build customer-centric cultures. These heroes and champions of the customer's cause are going to share with us firsthand their experiences of how and why they started mapping their customers' journeys, the challenges they face, and a typical project, what it looks like for them, a journey mapping project, and most important, advice and tips for newcomers who aspire to adopt this practice. Our guests come from a variety of backgrounds, B2B, B2C space, private sector, government sector, NGOs, not-for-profits, and even agencies and consultings. The idea is to provide you insights relevant to your business context, whatever it is. So please feel free to share your views, comments, and suggestions on this channel or at our Facebook page, or email us directly at journeymappers@epicconsulting.ae. Thank you again for watching and listening to our esteemed guests, and we hope you enjoy this series. So without further ado, let me turn to our guest today, who's a dear friend, Tareq. Assalamu alaikum, Tareq. Thank you for being with us. Tareq is one of the people who has always been very encouraging and inspiring on our route, on Epic's route to being a customer centricity consultancy, and I always salute and appreciate that. Thank you, Tareq.
Thank you for you.
Tareq, of course, is an enthusiastic professional with hands-on experience in different organizational, cultural challenges, with a core focus on customer experience management, helping different size companies improve efficiency and delivery of their customer experience promise throughout cross-functional ongoing engagement. Tareq has helped companies in their customer-centric cultural transformation and building them executing customers' experience strategy. He is a strong believer that creating a CX culture comes as a priority, as it will eat strategy. Technology and anything else comes before. He has been engaged with a number of different local and international consulting firms, executing projects on different scales. His first-time engagement in CX management goes back to 2011, while working with a US-based voice of customer platform representing their services in the MENA region. And he had the opportunity to be heavily engaged with one of the top regional airlines, Fiat Manufacturing in Turkey, and other esteemed organizations in the region. Tareq has worked as a CX consultant and trainer in different industries, including telecom, pharmaceutical retail, and transportation, including airports, airlines, and land transportation services. At the moment, Tareq is heavily engaged in the banking sector. So with that introduction, Tareq, what I would like to ask you to start off this session today is, why did you start mapping customers' journeys, and what was the pretext?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this video casting. Ghulam, you see, customer journey mapping is a tool for me that helps the organization to understand the role and the accountability of each function toward the design and the innovation of the customer experience. I usually use this little analogy. Customer journey mapping for any company is like the navigation system for an airplane. Now, the airplane can fly safely without a navigation system, but the question is, how far away can this airplane go from the taking off airport? How safe is it to go and explore a challenging weather without the navigation system? This is the same thing with customer journey mapping for any organization. It just helps the stakeholders inside the company understand what is needed to become more innovative, to what is needed to be more, let's say, what is needed in the design of the experience for specific personas. A company without journey mapping is not serious about customer experience management.
Okay, that's a fairly bold statement, and I think I'll put it out there as a quotation at some point.
It is true.
I agree with
I mean, just imagine like a serious airplane must have a navigation system, and a serious company about customer experience management must have journey mapping. Otherwise, the organization just cannot go far away from the originally designed or set experience at the launching of the organization, or let's say ground zero of the organization.
Okay. So Tareq, I figure that most of the time that you've done journey mapping, has it been in the role of consulting or within the organization?
It's pretty much in the role of a consultant.
Okay.
To derive the interest, first of all, inside the organization, starting from the top level, going all the way down, and then facilitate and execute the structure of the journey mapping.
Okay. So I guess I'll probably put two questions to you, and you can decide what sequence you want to use to respond to them, because I think both things will be intertwined. So, of course, we wanted to ask you, how you go about a typical journey mapping project or journey mapping exercise during your engagements, and what are the challenges that you face. And the challenges could be, in terms of the prep work, in terms of the execution, or in terms of the follow through of actually, acting on what insight you've got from the journey maps.
Yeah, very good question. I'll tell you. You see, how do I go about executing a journey mapping project? I'll be straightforward with you. There is no one size fits all. Every organization, every culture has its own methodology, but there is the overall structure and the typical expectation when you go and execute. It all starts with getting the buy-in of the top management. And
Okay.
when I say getting the buy-in of the top management, is pretty much convincing them that this tool is going to give you a good benefit internally, and using it is the foundation for becoming a more mature in their customer experience management practice.
Okay.
Usually this is done pretty much on a one-on-one basis, Ghulam. Call it politics, call it chatting, call it friendship, call it whatever you want to call it, but it has to be done on one-on-one basis. There is usually some sort of resistance, especially that the return on the investment is a little bit longer than what a business owner would like it to be.
Okay.
Now getting this, let's call this ground zero of any customer journey mapping project. Now getting this foundation settled and solid, I use these leadership as I won't call them agents, but I'll call them as a people who will jumpstart the discussion internally about customer journey mapping. We move on to the next step by doing a cross-functional awareness sessions, small bite awareness sessions, and there is very little technical that goes in these sessions usually. The objective of these sessions, Ghulam, is to spread the language. Have everybody speak one language, get everybody on the same page. And I don't want at this stage that everybody speaks the language fluently. It is just them to know that customer journey mapping is coming to town. Customer journey mapping is coming to town, and everybody will start just talking about it.
Okay.
The other objective, Ghulam, and it's very important, is while kicking off these small bite sessions, you usually find a selective audience who are hijacked by the concept. And these people will work as the change agents or the internal consultants who will drive customer journey mapping internally. Let's call them the virus that will spread the culture inside the organization.
I hope you haven't told them that they're viruses.
No viruses.
Good. There are good viruses as well.
There are good viruses. There's always good viruses. And usually these change agents start working with me for the organization, and we after choosing them, we go to the next level of going more technical, structuring the journey mapping. And usually I'm very careful choosing these persons from different functions, because it makes it easier to spread more technical inside the functions. Now, when we start working with these agents, we come with a question, or we usually come with a debate. Should the customer be engaged in creating the journey map, or should they not be engaged? And this is the inside-outside thinking comes in, because you see, the basic concept of customer experience management is to change the mindset to become more outside inside. It takes me. This is a challenge. This is one of the challenges you mentioned. Challenges. This is one of the challenges, is to convince and get everybody on board, and the buy-in that the customer should be engaged, involved in the structuring of the journey map. Now, after getting this mission completed, the big question comes in: who is our customer? That's when everybody realized that this organization is dealing with different type of customers. We have the young male, we have the retired person, we have a pregnant woman, we have an expat, and that's when we come up with personas. So before starting the journey mapping, we start creating the corporate personas. And this is a very exciting task, Ghulam, because this is the minute.
Department.
Excuse me?
Especially for the marketing department, I'm sure.
Yes. Because this is the minute they discover that the organization have different personas, have different people, that we are dealing with different people with different needs, with different expectations. And that's one of the most exciting, as I said, this is one of the most exciting tasks to deliver. After creating the personas, Ghulam, we come with how each persona sees the organizations. When we come to empathy mapping, personally, for example, I do my utility payments online, for example, because I just don't have the time to go through the traffic and wait on lines and carry the cash. While my father, who we both live in the same house, my father, who's a retired 82 years old, sees the utility payment part of his life as a chance to leave the house, socialize with people, get to know more people, and just entertain himself. So there's completely So a utility company, when designing an experience for a young person like me, will take different consideration when a retired person is going to make the payments. So that's another challenge, is creating the empathy map. How do I see, what's my pain points, what's my gain, how do I see this utility company, and how does a retired person see the company? What's their pain? The pain of my father is not to pay the bill. The pain of my father is to go and socialize with others. So there's a specific job to be done for the same task. Different jobs to be done for the same task. So see, there are a number of challenges. Changing the mindset to become the customer. And I always say it, please take off your executive hat, wear the customer hat, start thinking like the customer. Forget about the responsibilities you have as a department. Forget about the cost that might be generated due to thinking about like a customer. Let's think like a customer. And it is. That's why I usually like to have the customer on board to be engaged. If not in the design process, I don't like to call it the process, but if not in the structuring of the customer story, let's call it. It's more of a story. Then let them come and review, or let's say audit the final journey map. Let bring in an actual customer, an actual persona, walk them through the journey, and audit yourself. Is this what the customer is going through, or is this what we think the customer is going through?
Okay.
So really,
so you got to the point where you made personas, right? And then that's really then drives a lot of energy into the organization.
It's a lot of energy and a lot of gain. So let's not talk about the energy. There's a lot of gain, because it is the moment when every function understands that we are dealing with different people. We are dealing with different needs. We are dealing with different expectations. And it is a starting point that all functions realize that they need to speak one language.
Okay.
And the best way to do it is actually by journey mapping, because it just unhides the truth, and there is always this aha moment. Oh wow, wait, we didn't know that.
And these aha moments, do they mostly happen during the cross-functional moments when they're all collaborating and, for example, on the wall putting up post-it notes for the persona or for the journey itself? That's when is it during their engagement in the workshops?
You see, let's just say at the very first hour, there's this major resistance. Why IT is here? Why this warehouse manager is sitting with me? I am the frontliner. I am the VP of customer service, frontline, call it whatever you want to call it. And this warehouse manager whose operation is 20 kilos away from the actual customer. Why are they sitting next to me? Okay. And the next 2 hours of the workshop, they realize that this warehouse manager is affecting their process at the call center, for example. And there's this, oh, whoa, wait, we never knew that. and then there is always this blame. You warehouse people, you never helped us. They realize that they own the experience at the call center, for example.
Right. That's amazing. So it helps different people in the org. I actually almost feel like I'm in one of your workshops right now. I can imagine it. But so it's a great moment for everyone, even the people in the backstage of the organization who are supporting the behind the scenes processes, to actually get line of sight all the way into how they impact, and for the people who are right in front to get visibility into who actually is the cause of the pain that is being caused.
Exactly, because as you mentioned, Ghulam, frontline staff at the end of the day, they are implementing processes and set of rules and set of decision making that were structured by people in the back office. So the back office don't really know what's happening in the front office, and the front office doesn't really understand how the back office is structuring these processes. So with the journey mapping, it just uncovered the truth how everybody is engaged and interacting and should interact for that one objective of delivering a consistent and a wow customer experience.
Okay. Okay. Um, Tareq, I have a couple of questions about the process, which I think some members of the audience would be interested in as well. But before that, I wanted to ask you one thing. Just if I rewind a little bit, um, how did you get started journey mapping? What was the first time when you did it? And what was the reason for that? I mean, what drove you in that?
That was, if I recall, that was back in 2012. I was engaged with this fabulous, amazing pharmaceutical retail company here in Jordan.
Okay.
And
It's obviously become fabulous and fantastic after you've done work with them.
after I done work with them, no, they were fabulous. They were fabulous
Okay.
from day zero.
They're not listening, don't worry.
Now, and pretty much my engagement was with this pharmaceutical retail was in the voice of the customer domain.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the results of the VOC program that we established
Mm.
was so inconsistent. We have people who are so happy about certain issue, and the same segment is just not happy about another service. And digging deep in the root cause of why we don't have a consistent results or
Mm.
consistent emotional reflection on the customer, it was very obvious that every function in the organization was sitting on their own island.
Aha.
For
Okay.
example, frontline officers, or let's call them the pharmacists, they had this strong belief that without their work, the company is nothing. They just had this belief that all other functions are just ad hocs.
Okay.
Looking at another function, the Drug Information Center, DIC, they had the same belief. They thought that they are the main purpose of getting customers into the organization or into the company. Go
Okay.
back to the warehouse. We were talking about the warehouse.
Yeah.
The warehouse thought that without their distribution service, without their accurate distribution service, the pharmaceutical retail will never work, the shops will never operate, the drug information is worthless. They never really saw to what extent they are really interacting. And at one stage, I had this really exciting case study for them.
Mm-hmm.
The social media team was promoting a specific blood pressure medicine, and just telling people how good it is for those with blood pressure problem, while
Okay.
Drug Information Center was promoting that the same medicine can cause dehydration.
Okay.
And, and,
Lovely.
and, and when I took these two cases and did
Yeah.
this small mystery shopper kind of service and went to one of the retailers and said, listen, I have high blood pressure and I want this medicine. And you know what
Okay.
was the answer? Oh, listen, we have a better one. So we have three different stories from the same organization because each function thought
Yeah.
that they know better.
And the
And that
customer was showing
and
you
the
that
customer just
had
and that's what
different
I'm saying.
across.
Yes, and this is what I always say. It is very important to deliver a consistent experience rather than a wow experience. And
Mm.
the only way to do this is by visually understanding your customer story through customer journey mapping. And when
So
I say understanding, and I'm saying organization-wide understanding of the story.
amazing. So this opportunity of having very different views of both the customer experience they were delivering and of the customer actually reacting differently to different functions gave you the opportunity to actually show them what was happening to the customer end to end.
Absolutely, it was a live case. It was a hands-on a case from their own culture, and
Right.
that's when everybody got that aha moment. Like, whoa, wait, what's
Did
happening
you
here?
did you build that? Did you build that first journey map for them to show them? So this is what is
That
happening.
was my first journey mapping in 2012. We pretty much we did the journey mapping, and that was the case when the pharmacist had
Yeah.
the warehouse manager next to him and was
Yeah.
questioning why is this guy with me in this workshop? And the
Right.
warehouse person said, why is this pharmacist sitting here? And throughout the days, they realized that they are they complete each other. Without them,
Right.
the organization will never go far, just like that airplane.
Really amazing. In that first workshop, did you actually come in with a journey that you had built based on the data that you had and the interactions that you and the feel of the organization you had through the mystery shopping, or did you ask them to make a journey?
Good question. You know what I did? I brought in, I put a pharmacist
Okay.
right in the middle of the room, and I said, what do you guys see? And everybody
Okay.
said, we see a pharmacist.
All right.
Then I brought in a female. We live in a culture that is a very conservative culture.
Mm.
I brought in a female, and I said, this female is having this woman type of health problem. She
Okay.
walked into the pharmacy. What does she see?
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and the customer said, I see a man. She never said, I see a pharmacist.
Right.
And this is when we came up with the empathy mapping.
Okay. Amazing.
And yes, and from that point on, this pharmaceutical retail hires two in each pharmacy, a male and a female, or at least they do their best that during at least daylight shifts that they
Maximum
have
time.
at least, yes, yeah, that they have a male and a female. And um, and we use empathy mapping. Now this is a little bit away from journey mapping. We'll come to this. And we came with a conclusion that if there is a male pharmacist who's
Hmm.
facing a conservative looking female walking into the pharmacy,
Hmm.
just to go and introduce himself, say, hello, I am the pharmacist XYZ name, just to
Hmm.
bring in the word pharmacist. I'm not just a
Right.
male in trying to, I am a pharmacist, I am a health person who's trying to help you. And that had a great impact. It
Wow.
changed it changed the behavior of women purchase, and it was marked. It was actually measured. We did it before and after.
Yeah.
We had women walk
Mm.
out buying chewing gum. Right?
Okay.
Yes, because they're just embarrassed to mention their problem
Mm.
or their health issue. And
Yeah.
and once we started doing the empathy mapping away from the journey mapping again, and had this practice of the pharmacist saying, "Good evening" or "Good morning, I am pharmacist
Right.
Ghulam," for example, or
Yeah.
Tarek. The
Mm.
word pharmacist just clicked their mindset that
It
I am
changed the
here
customer's
for.
mindset. Yeah.
It changed the customer experience. Just simple words, simple word.
Mm.
Now, how
That's
did we go through the journey mapping after we did the persona and we did the empathy? Each function started doing the writing on the wall, and where do they stand in the awareness? Where do they stand in the consideration phase? What kind
mm.
of touch point? What kind of pain point each persona have?
Hmm.
And the end of the workshop, we came up with this structure. And what's more important than the structure is that moment that everybody said, okay, my next door function is actually complementing my work, and I'm complementing the other function. And without us working together and understanding the personas and the emotions of the customer, we will not go any far.
Well,
And
that is really amazing.
and William, you know what? With journey mapping, and understanding not only the obvious touch points but also the non-obvious touch points, this specific pharmaceutical retail, they got this brand differentiated. They became different. They were already different, I'll be honest, but just with their service, with this empathy impact on the journey, they just started to become different than the others.
And that difference, when it becomes a cultural difference coming from the DNA of the employees, is number one, of course, much more sustainable, I guess, and number two, it's very difficult to replicate for competitors.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. It becomes even more difficult when you realize that you need to go with your non-obvious touch points. Because let's be honest, a pharmaceutical retail with a journey map and another pharmaceutical retail they can have the same journey map. I mean, or let's say, for example, a bank X and bank Y, they pretty much share the same journey map. In order to be different is to understand the non-obvious touch points. I'll give you an example of a non-obvious touch point. Calling the call center is an obvious touch point. A non-obvious touch point is the same customer calling the call center 3 times in 5 days.
Yeah.
Now that should raise a flag for some senior person in CX or in the call center department to be proactive and call this customer and say, listen, you've been calling us for 3 days. Well, what do you want? How can I help you? How can we really help you? or for example, trying to log in to your online banking system. Punching in your password 3 times without getting it right. I mean, that's a non-obvious touch point. It will be really worth getting a phone call. Say, listen, are you trying to log into your account? I've been having a problem. Or is it somebody that's trying to hack your account?
You're
so
right.
These little non-obvious touch points make a big difference.
That's fascinating. Tareq, there are a couple of things I wanted to ask you about your approach when you do journey mapping with organizations. So, number one, I understand that from what I understand from you, you try to help the organization organically grow into journey mapping rather than being very prescriptive about it, which is something really interesting and different about your approach.
I don't like to bring things and throw things out of the parachute. I mean, if you don't own it, you'll never maintain it. If you don't, if the internal stakeholders don't own customer journey mapping, they will never maintain it. If any consultant, not only me, if any consultant walks in and just throw in theory and do the actual execution, him or herself, it will end up like a project that's finished. And journey mapping is not a project. You need continuous maintenance to this. If there is no ownership inside, it will just die.
So in this context, I wanted to ask you there are a couple of things. So with that context, Tareq, I wanted to ask you typically what I've seen and the way I've also approached some of the organizations is always to try and tie their journey mapping efforts with their business and strategic objectives. Whatever the strategic alignment is. So for example, a lot of the time the very baseline things are that we're struggling to acquire new business with a particular product or in a particular customer segment or in a particular geography, or we're struggling with retention of new customers who've come to us recently. And hence their strategic objectives are kind of tied in with these overall problems that they're facing. Is that something that you typically do as well, or is it because in the approach that I would adopt at times is I try to understand, okay, which customer segment is being affected by your strategy the most?
I always look at the current customer and future potential customers.
Okay.
So the customer journey mapping should focus on both the current and the future. And there is definitely a good deal of integration with what is known as the customer life value. Um, because the journey mapping, see, Ghulam, the organization, any organization, at the end of the day, the objective is to make money, to be profitable.
Yeah.
So understanding the customer life value is very important, and I personally I personally start with the profitable segment, understanding the profitable segment, and
Okay.
understand the journey mapping, and then
Mm-hmm.
I look at least profitable segment and go through the journey mapping and
Mm-hmm.
try to use journey mapping to transform these least profitable segment to more profitable segments.
Okay.
It could be redesigning the experience. It could be redesign of the product.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on the organization. What kind of business they are in.
Okay. Okay. And another quick thing I wanted to ask you was, you talked about personas. So when you start introducing personas, how does that overlay with the typical segments that some of these organizations might already be adopting? I mean, are you kind of looking at a persona representing two or three personas representing the same segment, or how do you? Because a lot of the time there's a lot of discussion between segments and personas.
Yeah, it is a discussion. Um, No, you see, customer segmentation is different than personas. A persona is a typical character that is interacting with the company.
Okay.
Um, a segmentation is more very specific. A persona is just the over. I mean, one organization can have just 8, 9, 10 personas, and that should be
Okay.
enough. But
Mm.
when you say segmentation, there is a more specific autopsy, let's call it, of who is our customers. So persona
Okay.
is just a character. It's just a need, a character with a specific expectation and specific needs. And the main objective of the persona is to reflect an empathy map. Ghulam.
Okay. Okay. Is to help the people empathize with their
Absolutely,
customer.
absolutely.
So it's not exactly that the persona is kind of bringing the segment to life through different characters.
Well, yes, bringing it to life, absolutely, because it is the best way to feel with the customer. Just like the pharmaceutical company, when
Mm.
I brought in this conservative woman inside the room, they were
Yeah.
able to feel what it is like to be a customer, rather than
Mm.
just mentioning, listen, we have this segment who is a woman in her mid 20s, she's a
Mm.
conservative person, but bringing in this persona and giving her a name.
Mm.
Say, for example, we call her Aisha. So anytime during the day, during any meeting, we'll say, okay, we're making this decision. How does Aisha feels about this?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
That's awesome.
does Jassim feels about this? So different personas brought in on the table, so everybody understand and empathize with the customer.
Okay. Tarek, mashallah, you've shared a lot of insight and trinkets. If you were to kind of summarize and say, okay, what are the key outcomes or benefits that you've seen from your engagements of doing journey mapping to help your clients solve their problems? What would those three top outcomes be? Because I'm sure there's a big list of them. But if you just sit back and think for a moment, what are the top three, even one, two, three outcomes and benefits that you've seen your clients receiving from doing customer journey mapping?
Um, Ghulam, There are so many benefits from a customer journey mapping, of implementing customer journey mapping. Let me share one story with you about a client in the banking sector. They, everybody in the bank, all functions, saw the IT department as a function that is called in and given orders to perform specific tasks related to customer experience. And they were just bringing them in to either saying, listen, do it, or listen, we've had a failure, please fix it. That was the main role of the IT. And surprisingly, they've never reacted. IT department never really were enthusiastic about the work. They've never been really into it. Pretty much they didn't own it. Right. They didn't see their share of the ownership. Now, with the journey mapping, visualizing the experience and the journey, and visualizing the story, everybody realized that IT has a good share of the ownership. And the end result was, in 9 or maybe 10 months, the entire culture or the entire perception went from call IT to fix it, call IT to do it. It was transferred to, listen, call IT to head this customer experience excellence meeting or innovation meeting. Wow. And the result was a lot of proactive mindset in the IT department, all staff, and the job got done. The job got done.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, it is, because as I said, you never maintain what you don't own. And these people never owned it. When the IT function saw the ownership, and when others saw the ownership, things got done. Now, this is one of my stories. Others, I mean, the common stories, the outcome and the benefit, everybody is speaking one language, everybody understands how the customer is interacting with the company, no matter the position of these employees. It could be in the accounting department, it could be in the HR, even HR recruitment. They used actual hands-on customer stories to in their interview process.
Their interviews, okay.
Absolutely. So everybody speaks one language. Everybody understands their role, their accountability, and the benefit was and always been great. Has great impact.
So it's basically bringing the entire organization to a common view and a common understanding of what difference they are making to their customers.
Absolutely. And how everybody, I mean, getting everybody on one page of understanding that we are not competing, we are actually working together for this one objective.
Sounds like the ultimate tool for a CEO, by the way. Getting your
entire
organization
together. You know what? Talking about a CEO tool, in one of the cases, one of the CEOs was attending, and he was able to understand that all functions work together. And he said, listen, everybody, I have an incentive program for you. Okay. We used to give incentives to those who deliver a great experience. I'm going to change it. And everyone said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to give an incentive to the department which helps the other department delivering a great experience.
Wow, okay.
And that made perfect sense. Because IT department is helping the front office.
Yeah.
But the front office was being incentivized.
Right.
So when everybody saw this journey mapping and how they are all interactive and how they are all actually on it, he said, listen, frontline, you're not going to be incentivized. If the IT does something that helps front office to deliver a great experience, then IT will be rewarded. And it became a culture, it became a practice. It just helped everybody work together rather than just staying away in silos.
Tareq, this is just making me wanting to go on and on, actually, to be honest. Really.
I know, we can speak forever.
Ask you the final question. I want to ask you one other thing, which just actually, even the CEO thought just struck me right now during our conversation. And this thought again has struck me right now. Whenever we're educated, most of the time, in most cases, we always know that when you go in an organization, you're working in a process that cuts across the organization, and you're actually handing over things to someone else. We all know that, as an IT professional, as a marketing professional, as a customer service, sales, marketing, we all know that. But I think so. And tell me if I'm wrong. If I just make a map and put it up on the wall, an entire service blueprint right now of a bank or of that pharmaceutical, and I then bring in people and show them that, listen, this is your organization and this is how you're impacting the customer, that probably won't have as much impact as having them actually build that map themselves and realizing that firsthand how they're impacting each other and the customer at the end of the day. So the act of actually mapping, doing it, engaging them in a workshop or otherwise, of actually building that view themselves together as a team is what actually makes the change, rather than just a map, a visual.
Absolutely. Cooking your own food is more tasty than sitting and being served. Well, don't quote my... Don't let my wife know this.
Yeah, I hope they're not listening to us right now.
She's not listening. No, I mean, yes, when you work the thing with your hands, and get engaged in it and put your thoughts in it, it just brings in, as I call it, and everybody knows it as ownership. It will be much easier and more profitable for any consultant to go into a company and just does the journey mapping and just put it in a wall and bring in all these functions and listen and tell them, listen, this is your customer story, huh? At the end of the day, I'm someone from outside the company. I don't know your customer more than you do. I'm just a practitioner in customer experience and journey mapping. And so yes, getting them engaged and putting their hands and coloring the journey mapping is the most important task. And what is even more important than this, Ghulam, is getting the customer engaged, getting them on board. I've had one company who created what we call a CAP, a customer advisory board, and these members are always engaged in the decision making, and they played a role in the journey mapping. See, in my country, in Jordan, it's just a new concept, and it was faced with so much resistance, not only from the organization but also from customers. What's my job? We had to do it. It takes a process, but eventually it becomes the sweet part of the organization.
Interesting. I would love to digress into that conversation, because there are always two schools of thought on how to bring in the customer in these. And really quickly, a lot of people would say that don't show the customers the journey actually. Because once you show them the journey, which the entire organization has built together, they kind of already have a preconceived notion in the back of their mind that, they'll go along with that dictation that this is our journey, rather than actually being vocal about, no, you're wrong over here. This is not actually how I felt or thought at this point, or this is not the next action I took, whatever. So what's your view on that?
No, my view is not to dictate them. Just get them on board and let them work it. Let them structure. Let them build the journey. Let them do the journey. Let them draw it. Let them see it, and let them have a discussion in between functions. So each function see the other function point of view, And
Okay.
and having the customer Ghulam is very important. It's not easy to take off the executive hat. Let's face it. It's not
Yes.
easy. Every VP concern is to cut cost. Every VP, and they will structure the journey based on trying to cut cost.
Yeah.
And that's not what the customer wants. The customer wants an easy, consistent service or experience.
Okay. Now, thanks, Tariq. So I guess to wind down this session, I would ask you, and actually you've mentioned a lot of things, but if someone, and I'm sure that there'll actually be a lot of people who get inspired just by this session of yours. If
I hope
someone
so.
was to say, okay, I want to go and start doing journey mapping now that I see the what kind of change it can bring in organizations, how should they get started? What would you suggest to them?
Start with the top management. Show them the
Okay.
benefit. Show them the benefit. Get their buy-in, so they stand next to you in the execution and the promotion, and I call it the jump start of it internally. Um, um, I would also say work on the mindset, work on getting off the executive hats of those who will be engaged in the journey mapping, and work to put the customer hat on, so they act, work, think like a customer.
How do you get
That's
them to do that typically?
in one cases I got one of the VPs go
Mhm.
and do the actual purchase themselves,
Okay.
and
Okay.
go and register whatever is needed by online. Tell them, listen, do you have a service to open a customer profile using your website? Do you have a profile on your company? He said, actually I don't. I said, okay, do it. Do it.
Okay.
Do you use the do you are you using the company mobile application?
Mm.
And one of these VPs said, well, why do I need it? All if I need anything, I'll just make a phone call and they said, this is it. Go ahead and get your application and start doing the purchase online. And,
Okay.
and,
So
and
number one, get top management on board. Number two, help them wear the customer's hat as much as possible so that they can actually build that empathy. And third, and that's the last one you have right now.
well, the third one, hire
The
me to do
dumbass.
the job. No, the third one is get to understand your personas, get to understand your empathy, and do the reflection on the journey map. Uh, and I always say it, once you finish executing, structuring, and designing the journey map and showing it to people, don't make it as a painting in your organization. Always visit, revisit, and realign whenever is needed. Life changes, technology changes, the customer thoughts and expectations changes. So you need to always visit your journey map to make sure that it's still valid.
So who owns that typically then, of revisiting the journeys? And
I personally always say it, everybody owns it.
okay.
Everybody owns it. Everybody should come and see and and talk to the jet to whatever is involved. Is
Actually,
this is happening?
the way you've described some of the sessions that you've been through with them, I am sure that everyone would want to own it actually
Yeah,
once they start
yes,
empathizing and
yes.
yeah.
And, I mean, it just put it there and let people talk to it. Let people see it. Let's everybody sit and in one in this pharmaceutical retail, Ghulam, we had a copy of the journey map at the cafeteria.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. You during your break, during your lunch break, you're having lunch with your peer, with your colleague. Look at it. Look,
Yeah.
it's right there. And always come up and listen. Is this is still happening? It's
Yeah.
not happening anymore. No.
Okay, that's amazing. And they could actually just make changes to it right there if they wanted. Put a
And
post.
not in the cafeteria, because the cafeteria is just a picture of it. It's not the actual one. The actual
Yeah.
one is in a journey mapping room. It's one of the meeting rooms. It's in one of the meeting rooms.
Lovely. No, Tareq, this has really been an amazing session. There's a lot of insight. There's a lot of, actually, the most important thing I think is that the passion that you're bringing to your work, the conviction that you bring to it. That's what is, will drive a lot of us, and has driven me in the past as well, by the way, to keep pursuing this.
It is. I mean, it's an art, Ghulam. It's not science. It's an art, and art has different angles, different thoughts on every day, different colors. It's an art. It's a beautiful thing to do.
I wouldn't want to call us all alchemists, but but at times some of it is like alchemy as well.
It is. It's true. It's true.
Anyway, Tareq, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And we will be putting this. This video is up on YouTube, so I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people who'd be interested to actually reach out to you as well at some point. And absolutely. I hope you're also open to responding to some of the questions that are put up on the YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. That would be a big bonus for the audience.
Oh, thank you. No,
thank you.
For me. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all for attending as well, and we look forward to get your comments, feedback, suggestions, and to reach out to Tareq or to us, or however you'd like to. Thank you again for this. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Salam.